And this Saraswati river is a mighty river, and satellite imagery today shows that the river was as big as 10 miles, which is a very big distance for a river, in case you know what is 10 miles. It's almost like 16 kilometers wide at the end. And the entire this Harappa, Mohenjo-daro and all these sites which are there, archaeological sites, they are all on the bank of the Saraswati on either side. You understood? And this Saraswati is described in the same way in the Mahabharata in terms of the cities that it goes through. Okay. Now just try to imagine that till 1990s it was thought to be a mythical river. A myth means, you understand what's a myth? A myth means a lie, something that is not there. It's only in recent times that people have understood that indeed there is Saraswati. So these are the kind of examples that we are talking of here. Or in recent times there has also been a lot of work in Dwarka, because the Mahabharata talks of the Dwarka not as the current Dwarka. If you go to Gujarat today, there is one city called Dwarka. But the Mahabharata's Dwarka is an island in the ocean. Okay, in the middle of the ocean, the Arabian Sea. So Indian archaeologists have now, for example, gone beneath the ocean and they have found evidence of a city underground. Right? Because the Mahabharata itself says that the Dwarka was submerged at the end of the story. Right? But they found out that city under the ocean. So this is the kind of work that is currently going on in Indian archaeology to find out things related to what the Indian books are talking about. So that's what we are trying to show here in a nutshell.
Therefore, they widely propagated that the Vedas were simply mythology. Max Mueller, perhaps the most well-known early Sanskritist and Indologist, although later in life he glorified the Vedas, initially wrote that the Vedas were worse than savage, and India must be conquered again by education. Its religion is doomed. Thomas Macaulay, who introduced English education into India, wanted to make the residents into a...
This guy is a very important figure, I remind you. His name is Macaulay. The entire education system of schooling that we have in India is based on Macaulay. It's called the Macaulay education system. And you know, that's one major criticism of the Indian schooling system today. Because the British introduced a schooling system specifically to produce clerks for the British Empire. You understand? They wanted clerks to rule over, to work as clerks, people to work as clerks. And the sad story is that even after 70 years of independence, if you see actually even today, the Indian original education system was totally different. But we are still sticking to the same rote memory and the style of learning, which is a legacy of this guy, Macaulay. Right? We're still studying the same way, the pedagogy is the same thing. That's one major criticism why India is not producing enough thinkers, philosophers and scientists. Because we are producing clerks only. You understand? We are not producing independently thoughtful people. And I'll tell you another interesting thing. Most of us go through schools just to get marks. This system was a pure legacy of Macaulay. So that you just stop thinking. And that's why we have studied so many things in our school, but we have hardly thought about it. Why am I studying this? What is the purpose of this education? Socha hi nahi. Because the system did not make you think. You just ran from one tuition to another, writing exams and scoring grades to enter college. But never thought. It's a very, very interesting point. Please note. I can talk a lot on Macaulay, but I'm not doing it. But here's the guy.
Race that was Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinion, in morals, and in intellect. However, the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer stated that the Sanskrit understanding of these Indologists was like that of young schoolboys. These early Indologists devised the Aryan invasion theory, denying India's Vedic past. They taught that the English educational system is superior. They intentionally misinterpreted Sanskrit texts to make the Vedas look primitive. And they systematically tried to make Indians ashamed of their own culture. Thus, the actions of these Indologists seems to indicate that they were motivated by a racial bias. Innumerable archaeological findings and their analysis have recently brought the Aryan invasion theory into serious question. This theory is still taught as fact in many educational systems despite much contrary evidence. The Aryan invasion theory is that the Vedic Aryans entered India between 1500 and 1200 BCE. They conquered the native Dravidian culture by virtue of their superiority due to their horses and iron weapons. They imported the Vedic culture and its literatures. This Aryan invasion theory, however, deprives the inhabitants of India of their Vedic heritage. The wealth of their culture came from foreign soil. The Aryan invasion theory raises an interesting dilemma called Thales paradox. On the one hand, we have the vast Vedic literature without any archaeological finds associated with them. And on the other hand, we have 2,500 archaeological sites from the Indus-Saraswat civilization without any literature associated with them. A preponderance of contemporary evidence now seems to indicate that these are one and the same cultures. This certainly eliminates this paradox and makes perfect sense to an unbiased researcher. Facts which cast serious doubt on the Aryan invasion theory are: there is no evidence of an Aryan homeland outside of India mentioned anywhere in the Vedas. On the contrary, the Vedas speak of the mighty Saraswati River and other places indigenous to India. To date, no evidence for a foreign intrusion has been found, neither archaeological, linguistic, cultural, nor genetic. There are more than 2,500 archaeological sites, 2/3 of which are along the recently discovered dried-up Saraswati River bed.
This is the very interesting slide that shows the archaeological sites along the river. So basically, the river Saraswati, and all over it is the Harappan, Mohenjo-daro stuff. I'm just wondering whether you all are able to connect to it, because I know that many of this information seems a little bit new to many of you, and I also presume that most of you studied history pretty much as a ritual in your school and not really thought about why we are studying something, because our system doesn't do that. It never makes you think, because the goal only is not to make you a philosopher. The goal is to make a clerk. So why should a clerk think? If a clerk thinks too much, there is a problem, because you will not be a faithful clerk if you think too much. The point here is that all the archaeology which has been discovered in India and all the books which are there of India, these two have never been connected intentionally by the British. And what has happened is, I mean, you may say now as a study only we celebrated 70th Independence Day. 70 years we are independent, but if you see, the thought process has not changed at all. Because hardly because perhaps our priority was just to eliminate poverty and somehow earn money. So we have never really thought about what the British did, why they did something, never thought about it. And that's what we are trying to say here. That all the archaeology that has been discovered and the books of India, they're actually the same civilization. Okay? And there is a lot of proof for it as well. So what is try to understand what is the implication of all this. ठीक है, ये है तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? That is the question. That means a lot. Basically, that means that the Indian civilization and the books of India are as they claim, because the Vedic knowledge, it claims to be coming from a distant past which is actually even unknown. It's coming from unknown times. You understood? And from such times, people are talking about sciences which are known to modern man very recently. So it's certainly a very interesting point to note as to what we are trying to talk. Okay. But on the other hand, if you subscribe to the British theory that the British only got came in as Aryans and they wrote all these books and they made all this, Indians don't have credit for anything, neither the archaeology, neither their legacy nor their books, nothing. You're just a civilization that has come as a result of British favors, which is an extremely an attitude that makes us like a slave, but we don't think about it very deeply as to what has been done and what is the impact of it. And another very interesting thing which I wish to mention at this point is, when you understand how some civilization and its books and writings were authentic, then you take that philosophy also seriously. Otherwise, why will a person take something seriously? If it was just written by somebody who was, a fool, or someone who had no other work to do, or written by the Aryans who were Indian, why will you take it seriously? So that's why it's all connected, and that's why before actually starting the course, I'm taking some effort to do this. So just try to pay attention.
These sites show a cultural continuity with the Vedic literature from the early Harappan civilization up to the present-day India. Several independent studies of the drying up of the Saraswati riverbed all indicate the same time period of 1900 BCE. The significance of establishing this date for the drying up of the Saraswati River is that it pushes the date for the composition of the Rig Veda back to approximately 3000 BCE, as enunciated by the Vedic literature itself. The late dating of the Vedic literatures by Indologists is based on speculated dates of 1500 BCE for the Aryan invasion and 1200 BCE for the Rig Veda, both now disproved by scientific evidence. Max Muller, the principal architect of the Aryan invasion theory, admitted the purely speculative nature of his Vedic chronology, and in his last work, published shortly before his death, The Six Systems of Indian Philosophy, he wrote, "Whatever may be the date of the Vedic hymns, whether 1500 or 15,000 BCE, they have their own unique place and stand by themselves in the literature of the world."
I hope one thing you also got, that Max Muller had written this particular book on 6 systems of Indian philosophy. What we are talking now, this is the cornerstone of Indian philosophy, this course that we are trying to do here. Max Muller wrote it in 1899, but the difference is, Max Muller wrote it in a way to discredit India of everything. He wrote a very speculative way. Right? So that's one very interesting difference.
It can be scientifically proven that the Vedic culture is indigenous through archaeology, the study of cultural continuity, by linguistic analysis, and genetic research. For example, the language and symbolism found on the Harappan seals are very Vedic. We find on these seals the Om symbol, the leaf of the Aspata or holy banyan tree, as well as the swastika.
See, these are all various artifacts found in this Harappa Mohenjo-daro, you understood? And basically, these artifacts are all intricately connected to Vedic symbolism, like the Om or the swastika, etc. That's what we're saying.
Or sign of auspiciousness, mentioned throughout the Vedas. Om is mentioned in the Mundaka and Katha Upanishads, consistently Vedic, and termed Atmats, as well as the Bhagavad Gita. The holy Ashvata tree is mentioned in the Aitareya and Satapatha Brahmanas, as well as the Taittiriya Samhita and Katyayana Smriti. The pictorial script of these Harappan seals has been deciphered as consistently Vedic and termed Proto-Brahmi as a pre-Sanskrit script. This piece of pottery from the lowest level of Harappan excavations with pre-Harappan writing is deciphered as Ila Vartate Bhara, referring to the sacred land bounded by the Saraswati River, described in the Rig Veda. Additionally, other archaeological finds are culturally consistent, such as the dancing girl, whose bracelets are similar to those worn by women of northwest India today, and the 3 stone Shiva Lingas found in Harappa by M.S. Vats in 1940. The worship of the Shiva Linga is mentioned in the Mahanarayana Upanishad of the Yajurveda and is still ardently practiced today. The Vedas were maligned by early Indologists because of their disagreement with their Eurocentric colonialist worldview, a view which produced and depended on the Aryan invasion theory. The fact that the Aryan invasion theory has been seriously challenged recently by scholars and Indologists adds credence to the Vedas as viable. They have listened and agreed. It's a disappearance. Is for a large, well-fortified, and prosperous.
Okay, so now I'm just going a little bit ahead on it because I'll do one thing. I'll put this video up on the site so you can see it later. But what they're basically showing is all about archaeology that has been done in India, in Dwarka, in so many places, trying to understand and map things to what has been said in the Indian books of thought to what is actually found under the ground. For example, this is all archaeology done in Dwarka, on the coast of Dwarka, going into the sea, digging, finding out the city, finding out seals. Seal means not the fish seal, but certain seals, mudra, which mentions in the Mahabharata in terms of what a security guard should carry, and similar seals found under the ocean. So it's all that kind of stuff. But I'll just go a little bit ahead, maybe do something and then stop.
Sutra, the Indian mathematical treatise written centuries before Pythagoras was born. The decimal system, based on powers of 10, where the remainder is carried over to the next column, first mentioned in the Taittiriya Samhita of the Black Yajurveda. The introduction of 0 as both a numerical value and a place marker. The concept of infinity. The binary number system, essential for computers, was used in Vedic verse meters. A hashing technique similar to that used by modern search algorithms, such as Google's, was used in South Indian musicology. From the name of a raga, one can determine the notes of the raga.
Actually, those of you who belong to computer science perhaps will study this later. In data structures, we teach a concept called as hashing and hash tables, where looking at a particular string, you actually index and find out how to get more data on that. You understood? It acts like a metadata. So you get an initial string, and from that you find out where to go and search more of it. That's actually in computer terminology called as hashing, and such a table is called as a hash table. So perhaps you may have not heard this term, but most of you will study this when you study data structures in second year. So the concept of hash table is prominently used in Indian music because all the ragas in their notes are understood by the starting name of that particular raga. That's how it is.
From this Kaptapayati system, the Vedas, however, are not as we carry. Please visit our website, www.
Yeah, so okay, any quick questions at this point? Is everyone trying to connect to what I am trying to talk on, or how is it like? Yeah, good. Little loudly.
Aryans were in India to Indus Valley, so where do they actually
No, he's asking the question. The Aryans apparently came from Europe, so where did they come from? That question has to be asked to the people who promoted that theory. Where did they come from? See, because there is something called as null hypothesis. That means nothing can be accepted unless proven. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? Suppose, for example, if I say that such and such person beat his wife yesterday, it is up to me to prove how he beat. The other, I mean, if you know, you cannot, you understand what I'm saying, right? Who proposes the theory has to prove that. So obviously there is no proof for any Aryans coming in 1500 BC. There is absolutely no proof. It was just a concept spoken by the British in order to gain racial superiority over the Indians and also divide the Indians. You know, by saying that the South Indians were Dravidians and the North Indians are Aryans. This kind of a thing they did. Because if you interestingly see, this whole concept that South Indians and Dravidians is not accepted. Aryan literally in Sanskrit means one who knows values of life. That is Aryan, that's all. One who knows values of life is called as an Aryan. If you see the Ramayana, Mandodari calls Ravana as Hey Arya. You know, so she addresses her husband that way. And he was very much a South Indian because he belonged to Sri Lanka. So because at that time the whole continent was accepted as one only. So the point here really is that this whole concept of, and Dravidian just means South Indian. Dravidian literally means South Indian. But the whole concept that Aryans are different and Dravidians are different, by saying North Indians are the Aryans and the South Indians are the Dravidians, this was all ploy of the British to rule over you because they had a simple policy of divide and rule. And in order to divide and rule, they had to make many distinctions. There is absolutely no proof for it. So when there is no proof for it, then what basically happens is the Vedic tradition gets the credit due to it, that what it has actually spoken about. Is that okay? Any other questions? Somebody had that? Yeah.
So
I'll take all your questions.
Yeah. Astrology and astronomy, we need to know both. We need to know astrology and astronomy to understand Veda. So
no, you don't need to.
No, my doubt is something else.
Yeah.
As we can see stars through Earth.
Yeah.
So the view of here, we are aligning the stars in a particular order so that we can name them particularly according to this. But the view of the star from the other direction, like if you take, I'm not into astrology completely. Some stars, you know, they just from Earth, they give a view of a Scorpio. Yeah, right. But the same stars, from the view of some other planet.
Understood.
Then how can we say that those stars actually affect?
Very good. So the whole thing here is in astrology, the view that you're having from your place is the important thing. It's not about what others are seeing. You understood? That means, that's why in astrology the most important thing is from a particular view on the earth, how the sky is. It's like, for example, how is the astrology calculated even today? It's calculated based on birth time in a particular place. So when a person is born at a particular place at a particular time,
yeah,
you know, whatever is the sky, that is how it is. So I'm not going to astrology right now, but I gave you that as an example just to tell you why astronomy was important in the Vedas. See, what I wanted to tell you is this, that in the Vedic system of knowledge, anything was spoken in connection with something. So astronomy was not spoken as an independent textbook, or math was not spoken as a textbook on math. There is nothing like a Vedic book on math. Though of course nowadays people talk about Vedic maths and all that, but there is no book like that. It is found in several places in some context. So astronomy is spoken whenever astrology has to be understood, because without understanding of astronomy you cannot begin only astrology. You understood? In that sense I gave you that example.
So can we even say this, like those people particularly implemented this so that if people right now, like we can say, as you said, that the particular dates, these planets were aligned in a particular order. So can we say that this particular astrology or astronomy, everything was made so that if people try to prove that Mahabharata or this particular war took place and they wanted a proof, so the proof would be the alignment of the planets at that time? Like,
yeah, see, that's what. See, if you see from our perspective of inference, there are two possibilities. Okay, possibility number one. See, there are actually three possibilities we are talking of. Good, thanks for raising that point. There are three possibilities that we are actually talking about over here. Possibility number one second, I just have to align this back here again. Possibility number one is what the British taught us. What did they teach us? That is, the Aryans came in 1500 BC, right? The Aryans came at that time in India. and they wrote stories. They wrote books. And they wrote what is called as myths. That's how it is called today, right? If you, for example, see Mahabharata, it is called as a myth, a mythology. Mythology is something that never happened. Just like you have Harry Potter or something. Someone has written something. So this is the British view. This is the first thing. The British view. Which is, I would say, the modern understanding by and large. Because the modern comes from the British only. Right? So what did they teach us? A15 BC, these guys came in and they wrote all these books. But surprisingly, they wrote books with various facts that were in line with the sky. Now that's something amazing. You understood? Okay. Now, so the first thing is, so this is the modern view. Okay. The second view is the traditional view. Now the traditional view could be seen in two ways. The traditional view could be seen in two ways. The traditional view, first way to see it is, it was actually written at the right time. That means, for example, Mahabharata says it was written approximately at 3000 BC and it was actually written at that time. But still it is a myth only. That means, you understood, this is also a possibility if you are talking about inference. That means people at this time in India wrote a nice story, aligning their story with the sky. Possible. Okay? But the other part of the tradition is that it was actually written in 3000 BC, which is what the book says. The Mahabharata says it was compiled at this time. And it was a true story, because that's what the book says. The book doesn't say that it's a myth. Okay, so now the thing is, now these are the three possibilities that exist. You understood what I'm saying? I'm talking from inference perspective. Possibility number one is that the Aryans came in and they wrote myths. Okay, possibility two is it was written at the right time, but still it is a myth only. Possibility three, it was written at the same time, but it was a fact. Okay, now the first thing is, what I'm trying to at least say is that there are severe problems with this theory. Because there is no proof of the Aryans coming in. No, there is no proof of the Aryans coming in. Not only no proof of Aryans coming in, try to understand what I was showing on the video. The videos, what they tried to show is the Indus-Saraswati civilization which is there. Okay. In fact, previously it was the British called it Indus Valley civilization. I hope you remember at least this term studying in history somewhere. Indus Valley civilization. But later it has now been called as Indus-Saraswati civilization because everything is on the banks of Saraswati. Okay, so the Indus-Saraswati civilization is dated at least 2200 BC. And the point is, in the Indus-Saraswati civilization, you have got all symbols and items connected to the Vedic time. Like for example, you showed, right? The Shivalinga or the Om or the Sanskrit text written in a different lipi. That means it uses a different script. But ultimately the language is Sanskrit only, you understood? Sanskrit is a different script. So all these things are found. So one thing is pretty clear, that if all these things are dated at 2200 BC, then this theory doesn't come only to picture. So what is the meaning of talking about the fact that Aryans came and started Hinduism? There is no such thing, because before that also it was there. So what we are actually ruling out today is only this. Okay, now when you come over here, these two possibilities again remain. That either it was written at the right time or it was a myth. Now, one thing I would like to tell you, even if you say this is the point, of course if you ask me from a very scientific perspective, nobody can say whether this is or this. It's a matter of faith over here. But what I would like to say is, even if this is true, it's something very amazing, because 5000 years back to have Indians who knew how to understand things in the sky is phenomenal. Because from the Western perspective, at this time, all over the world, there were only nomadic tribes, throwing stones and getting food. There was no knowledge anywhere in the world. That's what Western science is. That 5,000–6,000 years ago, this is before Roman and Egyptian civilization, where there was only hunters in the world. Now, if the world had hunters and Indians had people who are smart enough to write books with true facts of the sky, that's amazing. In fact, even let me tell you, even if these Aryans wrote such myths with true facts of the sky, it is commendable. But the problem is they didn't. Because to do that is to give credit to foreigners which is not true at all. So how can we accept that theory? See, from a scientific perspective, this is absolutely wrong. These two may be the case. That is a different thing. I mean, there's absolutely no way to go either. Is that okay? Answer your question. Good. Any other questions?
So,
Yeah, I think there was one question. You had some question.
so you showed that the value that started in the take 17 to 18 because of the alignment of the sky. And you also said that between those years, also twice it again happened. The alignment of the planets.
I just said that it has happened only twice in 6,000 years.
Yeah.
So it's an extremely rare event. But the book says that it happened at that time. Whether it happened another time, that's a different thing.
You know, what I'm asking is, how is it said that the Kali started at only that time, and after that even once more it happened? Because they say in the Vedic texts that at the end of Kali, it is marked by the birth of Kalki.
Yeah, that's a different thing. So basically, I mean, that part we are not coming to right now because that's much further away event. But this is the only event which you know of. See, the question is not why it is starting there. The question is what is the description of the sky and whether that maps. Now, why that date, that you leave it. That's because of their calendar is like that. You understood? The calendar is like that.
Sir,
Yeah.
the position of the planets is seen like that from that particular location, so it should affect that particular part, as you said, that from where you are.
No, by and large, the position of the planets is seen everywhere throughout the Earth only. It is not seen only in a particular place on Earth.
So why it is specifically said as Ujjain as a starting place?
No, because some place you need to have not to talk. When you're talking about the sky, it is always in the context of a time and space. Correct? Now, if I say something, that would have happened in some other, like if I have to say, the sun is at some particular point, where? In Pune, at 2 o'clock. Okay, obviously in Bombay also the sun is at the same point at some other time. But in order to give a time, the time is related to space, right? You understand what I'm saying? If I just say some date, like if I say that the Olympic 100-meter race is on Monday, 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock where? In Rio de Janeiro, in London, in Bombay, where? So you have to give a space, right? Without space, the time has no meaning. That's why space is there, nothing else. Yeah.
It is believed that Vedas are given by God of creation. His name is Brahma.
Okay.
How do we believe that?
Yeah, so we are not even coming to that right now. That's not the point really. See, the Vedas obviously claim that they are not of... See, okay, now he's asking a good question. What about the authorship of the Vedas itself? So as far as the Vedas itself is concerned, they are all written at 3000 BC by this personality called as Vyasa. He writes it at this time. And the concept is, he writes it at this time doesn't mean he invents it. The idea is that he is called as a compiler. Compiler means somebody who writes it down for the first time, but it was already there even much before that, and it has always been there. That's the concept. Now that of course you cannot prove, so I'm not really going into that. But all I want to tell you is, at this point is, that there are several things about the Indian tradition in general which has phenomenal credibility even if you see from modern perspective. And that's all I want to talk about. Is that right? Any other quick question? Yeah.
Sir, if a person proposes a statement
Yes.
and finds enough proof to make us believe that it is fact, then does it still belong to verbal testimony?
Belong to?
Verbal testimony.
It is verbal testimony only. Because...
But if the proof is about inference and percent, what we can...
No, but still it is verbal only because as such the book is verbal only, right? It is just like, your mother told you that this is your father and then you did genetic test and you matched your whatever DNA with your father's DNA and understood that indeed he is only your father. But still it was ultimately known by verbal testimony only. Had your mother not told you this is a father in the first place, you wouldn't have been able to even test it. You would be hunting around finding where is my father. It's verbal testimony. Any other point? Any other point here? Okay, fine. So I think we are timed out. I had some more things to talk on, but unfortunately because my technology failed, I spent a lot of time wasting running here and there. Hopefully next time I'll be in time at 12:30 only to set everything. So I'll get my entire 2 hours to do my thing. Okay, thank you. The attendance sheet came around. I wonder if everybody signed that.